You're listening to the 40 Fit Radio podcast, dedicated to the 40-plus community. Join us as we discuss the truth about fitness and health using science, reason, and the experiences of our host and content experts. Welcome to the 40 Fit Nation. Hey guys, welcome back to the 40 Fit Radio and welcome back to the 40 Fit Nation. I'm your host, Coach D, and today we're going to talk about fitness and work. And when we're talking about work, what we're really talking about is what we do physically outside of our normal jobs. It could be related to our jobs, but more related to our daily living and the kind of physical activity that we get involved in and use or express our fitness. Because let's face it, one of the reasons why we work out, one of the reasons why we are involved in a fitness program is we want to be able to use that fitness and express our fitness in ways that make us able in day-to-day life. So the reason why I'm doing this podcast, this will be a quick one today, is that I took a vacation recently and I was up in the mountains of Colorado and was doing some work on a home that we have up there. And I just noticed how easy things were still to do that were physically taxing. And so a lot of times I'll get questions from friends of mine who will ask me, why do you work out all the time? Why do you do the things that you do? Why do you lift weights? And my question is, why wouldn't you? I mean, I think to myself, I realize that that's not a weird question, but it's a difficult question for me to perceive why someone wouldn't see the value in being generally strong or generally mobile or generally enduring and able. So one of the things I notice is that as I get older, things that I would that would appear to be more difficult and becoming more taxing, and there are some things that are. In general, I think things do get harder as we age, but it's surprising how easy and how well I can use my physical ability in day-to-day living when I'm out cutting wood or it's out working on the house, or I'm actually today doing this podcast from a ranch in Central Texas, the Hill Country area. And today I'm about to go out and cut up two 40 to 60-year-old oak trees who were struck by lightning this last week in some of the storms that we've had here in Texas. So I've got to do that today. And so we'll see how I feel after that today. But I think it's important that we recognize the inherent value in being reasonably fit as we age. And it's in a culture that we have, like we have today, it's difficult sometimes to correlate because our lives are so creature comfort oriented. I mean, you can live your whole life within the boundaries of a very civilized environment where there are a lot of creature comforts and never really have to express your abilities as a human physically. And I think there's a lot of that there's a challenge with that in the sense that we need to use not only our minds and our emotions and our cognitive ability and develop those areas, but also our physical ability. And it's important that we express that even in our older years. As we get older and older, the tendency is to want to use more creature comforts, want to not do things as physically. But my experience has been knowing several men and women over the years that have worked way into their 90s, that the more we are able to do, the longer, the more we'll be able to do the longer. I mean, that makes sense. I know you're probably thinking to yourself, well, that's obvious, Coach D, but it's not so obvious in the way that we live. If it's obvious, then we would challenge ourselves on a day-to-day basis to do things in a hard way sometimes just because the value of work. And we've talked about that a little bit before in prior episodes, that there's a value in doing things under a voluntary hardship, meaning you're doing it harder than you could potentially because you realize the value of the physical expression of your fitness and what it brings to your character, what it brings to your quality of life, your longevity, your ability to do longer in life. And so, I think it's kind of interesting. I notice that sometimes we have all these gadgets and we have all these things in life that help us and assist us in day-to-day living. And the reality is many of those things are not good for our overall longevity, our overall quality of life and health. And we should, when given the opportunity, express our fitness. Now, it doesn't mean I don't believe in modernized machinery and some creature comforts, but I think it's good for us to physically labor. I think if you look back in prior generations, if you look to our parents probably, in the earlier portion of the 20th century when physical labor was a part of everyday living for every human other than the very highly elite. And even for them, life was more difficult. You know, I read something not too long ago which said that for a millionaire of the earlier portion of the 20th century, that they had a poor quality of life in regards to access to health care, quality food, lodging, technology, and all those other areas of life than someone who lives at the poverty level today in the U.S. So, I mean, I know that's hard to believe, but that is the truth. And that means that back in those days, people, I hate it when I used to hear that, back in those days, but really, back in those days, people had to physically do harder things on a regular basis. And thus, they were able to do harder things longer. You see, if you don't use it, you lose it. And so the ability to physically express your body, to be able to go out and lift something heavy, carry something, or also the ability to do something enduring, where you have to do something for a longer period of time. All of those things, if you do not do those things, you are not able to continue to do those things in your older years. And it's a gradual decline, a little bit by a little bit each year over the years. Your strength reduces, your power reduces, your endurance reduces. And you don't even notice it until one day you go to do something and you're like, golly, that was extremely heavy. Or extremely hard. Or I used to be able to do that and I can't do that anymore. Now, let's face it. There are some things that we can't do when we get in our older years. It's just the fact of life. But my whole philosophy is I want to try to limit those things to the minimum and to continue to do for as long as I can physically in my day-to-day living. So, the value of work, when you look at modern culture, when you look at American culture, and when you look at the spectrum of the populations, the value of work is the same no matter what the class, no matter what your upbringing, no matter what your education, the value of physical work, because everyone has a physical body. So, whether we want to believe it or not, we all end up in the same place. And the question is, how much quality of life are we going to have from point A to point B, between the dashes, the time which represents the dash on our epitaph, on our monument. I know that sounds morbid, but really, let's face it, that's really what it's all about. What is that quality of life and the value of work and what it does to us? And I would propose to you that the value of hard work, no matter what your station in life is significant. And the ability to do, especially for men and women alike, the ability to do for longer periods of time means that you'll be able to do longer and rely on others less, and be able to be independent longer in your life. So I think there's a lot of value in that. And, I find how enjoyable it is to go out and just do something physically, to get out and get a good sweat on, to go out and do something hard. And it amazes me how well barbell training correlates to just general physical activity outside in our daily lives. Those big compound movements that we do, they basically mimic the normal human function. There are basically a series of physical movements, human movements, which are represented by those barbell compound movements. Think about it. A press is a reach overhead. Picking something up off the floor is a deadlift. Squatting down to pick something up or to lift something up is a squat. Pushing something away from you is a bench press. And then you could probably say, you could add the chin up in there, which represents being able to pull up on something. And then you've got normal human locomotion, motion, or movement, which would be walking and things like that. But all of these big barbell movements correlate to daily living. They correlate to basic daily function. So using the barbell movements for your fitness, and then adding some body weight movements in there too, in that process in your programming. And then when able, doing maybe 1 to 2 days of conditioning to allow you to express your fitness in a little bit longer time frame, doing something that is maybe a lower load, but you're doing it for a longer period of time. And I highly recommend interval sets for that type of training. I think it's the most effective, and the literature bears it out that doing interval training while doing strength training has the least amount of deprivation on your strength and your strength development and how that develops over time. So man, guys, here's what I would say to you. There is value in work. There's value in you, even as an older person, going out and using your body physically. Challenge yourself to go out and do something hard. Go out and help a buddy move, or go out and cut a tree down and chop a bunch of wood, or go out and lift a bunch of bags of sackcrete, or build a fence, or whatever it is. But there's value in using our hands and putting our hands to work and just seeing the fruits of our labor. And I think it goes beyond just us expressing our fitness. There's value in what it does to your mind, into your character. Doing the hard goes a long way to keeping your quality of life at a high level for a long period of time. And so go out there and get some work, guys, and express that fitness and get out there and get you some. So thanks for joining the 40 Fit Radio podcast today, and thanks for joining the 40 Fit Nation. You can check us out on 40fit.com. You can also click on the 40 Fit Radio tab and download or listen to all the 40 Fit Radio podcasts. You can find me on Instagram at DL Deaton, and you can also find us on Facebook, 40 Fit Masters Community Group, and then you can email us too at info@40fit.com. So have a great day and get out there and get you some work.